welcome back to another episode of Hand Tool Rescue. Today is a very poisonous day because this tool is a sulfuric acid milk fat testing centrifuge from the 1920s. Oh god, almost lost all my breath just saying that. This is super cool to me because of danger, obviously, which is always intriguing. And also, just its general shape is really neat. I don't come across bulbous tools like this very often, and it caught my eye immediately. Therefore, it is now in my possession. Now, I did a quick lead test on this because I am already assuming some of this stuff is going to be too big for the sandblaster, which has a nice air filter and blah 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 on it, and I'll probably just end up like wire wheeling this paint in my workshop, spreading it into my lungs. But it doesn't have any lead in it, surprisingly, which makes me think it's probably Japanning, since it is very black right now. Now, this is a simple device, okay? It merely spins milk at a high speed using gear reductions or increases, and basically separates out the fat from the rest of the contents of the milk and lets you know if your milk is 3% or 2 or 8 or whatever it happens to be. Now, this device was created by Mr. Babcock, who's very famous in the dairy industry, for coming up with this machine and many others. And there are schools and parts of schools named after him. Regardless, apparently, in the late 19th century and early 20th century, farmers lying about how much milk fat their milk contained was apparently enough of a problem that this guy needed to invent a machine to call out all of the farmers. So the farmers either, say it's a certain percentage or cut it with water because they just pay by volume. So, when you bought 16 million gallons of milk, it would just arrive in some percentage that you'd never know, and all of a sudden your dairy products don't come out like you hoped. So he set out to design something that was portable enough and easy enough to use by pretty much anybody on a farm, and that could quickly determine what percentage of fat your milk has, and therefore how much money you should be paid for it. So, as simple as this seems, it was fairly revolutionary in the dairy milk industry because no longer could people just say their milk was good. You had to actually prove it. Now, these tests that are done in this type of tool can also be done for ice cream milk fat, and I believe there are protein tests that use the same methods. There were a bunch of others designed after this, but I believe the milk fat was the most important and the first. It has a glorious, glorious brass tag, as always, so I'm going to keep that sensually there without damaging it any further, and I'll just shine that up when necessary. There is this glossy, shiny, nickel-y looking coating. I'm pretty sure it's zinc. Zinc would make sense due to its anti-corrosive properties. So there may just be a layer of heavily contaminated, poisonous sulfuric acid juice everywhere, or it's just a high-content zinc paint or paste or something. I think I've seen it before in a few other tools, and when I dunk it in the evaporest, it comes out almost like grainy and melts off really easily. It's very odd. So I think it's zinc, but we'll never know. I'm not the guy to test the stuff. That same zinky coating coats this entire thing. So basically all internal parts are coated in this zinc. So it's some or something like that for corrosion protection. In case, I'm assuming, some of the bottles break or explode at high centrifugal speeds. So at least they're, looking out for your skin and organs as the sulfuric acid eats through your body before the doctors, which are on horses, can arrive in time. This moves, but not enough. I don't want to damage it further, so I'll just chuck it in the evaporus, and then if it doesn't tap out easily after that, I'll make the touch. It shouldn't be too big of a deal, really. In the big castings go. Not removing the paint, because I always want to see the original colors. You just never know. And it's just cool to look. Now, here comes a really big surprise. It's blue. It was just extremely dirty. But this whole thing is blue. And at this point, which you cannot see in frame, is my face, which is a massive smile on it, because I rarely get to see blue tools. It's basically doesn't exist. Okay, I'm assuming this is cobalt. I actually had someone offer to test a little bit of it in like a mass spectrometry system to tell me what the problem was with identifying what exactly the blue material is. And I haven't gotten that back yet, but everyone initially at that location seemed to think it's cobalt, which makes the most sense. Now, the black initial look must have just been the not only dirtiness, but just the darkening over time of whatever bonding agent was used to hold the cobalt in suspension when they painted it on. And you could see that kind of black and blueness. I went so far with this in terms of figuring out if it actually was this blue or if it just happened to settle to the bottom, the cobalt, and it was like a darker blue, like a super navy dark blue. And under microscope, it very much looked like it was just that blue. In areas that weren't exposed to either the elements or dirt or whatever, under those sections was a nice bright blue. So this is a true bright blue tool, at least from what I could discern based on my evidence. Super, super excited. I get to finally buy some blue paint and use it. I know this seems like nothing to some people, but those type of colors were just not common. Everything at that period was just japanned, and that was it. So, very exciting for me. Regardless, I went on to replace the heavy zinc coating. I bought the super high concentration, like 90% pure zinc galvanizing spray with a shiny finish once it dries. And it seemed to work fine. And then I color matched the blue as best as I could. And I bought, maybe 10 different blue spray paints. And this one was actually like an exquisite match for whatever reason. And put on not too many coats. This tool really did look like it had a very thin coating. So I didn't want to go super thick and make it very smooth and crazy, just enough to what I believe was originally there in terms of thickness of paint. The wire wheeling, all the little brass cups, is super satisfying as well because they shine up really, really nicely. Now you can see that galvanizing / zinc coating looking glorious right now. It was extremely expensive. Each can was like $40 or something. So luckily, I didn't need too much of that. I also purchased these nightmare cotter pins that are hardened for some reason, and I can never cut through them with anything but an abrasive disc. All my little snips do not have the power. I also, because I have a mental problem and must brassify everything I can, I'm adding brass washers here and there for increased sensuality and smoothness and also speed if I can. I just need this to run exquisitely. Since all these surfaces are just painted cast iron on painted cast iron, it's very odd. Although it seems to work just fine without it. But I cannot help myself. So I made a bunch of these and I placed them everywhere. Oh, you'll see. So there's that thinner coating of paint. You still get that grainy cast iron look. And I believe that's more original just based on what was remaining in terms of the thickness. Now I'm going to switch the riveted joints here to brass screws just because I believe they hot rivet these together in the factory and I can't do that, especially with paint on it. And I didn't want to paint the rivets of the fasteners. It's not essential. So it will just be a quick replace, especially if you ever need to take this door off and fix it or something. It's just easier. Plus, brass is very sensual, as I said, so I can't deny it. I did polish rods, as I do from time to time in my private life, and this is no exception. Okay, this was polished to like a nice smoothness just to get any burrs off. Because I want this to run so exquisitely smoothly that it's borderline illegal. And I doubt this used any grease. So I'm just going with my usual non-detergent 30 weight oil on everything here. I can see a lot of room for improvement in terms of where to put, like bronze bushings or washers in places, but at the end of the day, it's not necessary. Unfortunately, not everywhere. But if I was an engineer and I didn't have to cut costs, I would slap that brass every day. I always think about leaving the cotter pins so that all the cotter pin people have a mental breakdown. That's for some reason that is amusing to me. But alas, I didn't. Back to the pinstriping. So I'm going back to my technique of using pinstriping tape to create border walls for the actual gold pinstriping marker. Because my hand is not skilled enough to create such a thin and perfect line like the guy in the factory who did 7 billion of these for 400 years. My experience is not at that level, so we got to get to the end result quicker than that, and this is my little hack for that. I also need to highlight the actual name and the patent dates, which are also on the top casting here. Look at those nice, clean lines. Borderline illegal. Yes. I don't know why there aren't any horizontal lines, but seems to be the original line based on photos I found online, of which there are not many in a great condition. I saw a lot of these restored as black, which now I know was not correct. And there was one that was red, so I have no idea if that was just some slightly different model. I don't know. There's nothing like steel wool and 10 minutes of your time to have the most satisfying work you've ever done in your life. It just always turns out so nicely. It's almost, it's legal. It's too good. This was missing, the drain plug in case of explosion. So we'll put that back. And to slap on the handle. Now the wooden thing of the handle is missing, so we should get on that probably. Using Jatoba here, once again, the piece I bought 600 years ago that is now in every single one of my restorations because it's a very nice wood. The metal lathe is greatly offended, as always. I'm just going to generally match it. I don't think it super matters. But just to get the similar profile of what was originally there is enough for me. The rest has to be all done by hand shaping anyways, so I can dial it in as necessary. So I'm going to shellac this baby up because shellac is glorious and nobody really respects the shellac like it should be. Name me another coating that dries in 90 seconds completely and it's done and I can touch it immediately and just sand it and put on another coat if I want. It's too fast. It's too good. Okay, now we're getting to the point where I have found what exact bottles went in this machine, and they are called Babcock bottles or vials, and they were very expensive, like $40 each. Restlessness, 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 so spectacular. Restlessness, restlessness. Restlessness, so spectacular. Resfesinus, resfesinus, resfesinus. Need more vernacular. Okay, this is a 1,000,000% do not try this at home activity. In here I have some wonderful Babcock bottles or vials, and I'm trying to balance the weight of the centrifuge here for when I add the actual vial, which contains the milk. Okay, there is 17.6 milliliters exactly of milk in here, and in this 93% pure sulfuric acid, I will add to this milk in exactly 17.6 milliliters as well. Okay, for the pouring I will be using these gloves. For the spinning I will be using the intense forearm gloves, because if any of these break, specifically the one with the sulfuric acid, it's not going to be a good time. So I will pipette very gently the poison, and if I splash it on myself, this video will abruptly end. Oh, ooh. Let me see that mask. Oh yeah, oh. These aren't the very greatest pipettes. There's 9. Okay, very slowly I will be adding this. I don't know if this eats my gloves. I really hope not. Now the reaction taking place with the sulfuric acid and the milk is such that the proteins and anything else other than the fat are dissolved by the sulfuric acid, allowing the fat to float to the top once we centrifuge it. So 17.6, ooh, right there. Oh god. Obviously this isn't as accurate as I'd like it to be. This reaction will also be exothermic, meaning this bottle is going to get hot. I don't want to add too much at once, or I shall die. Now, you can see the different layers. I will very slowly mix this. The anxiety is at the highest. Oh god. Oh god. I've dropped some sulfuric acid on the bench and it is literally sizzling. There we go. It's turned black. Oh my god, that's hot. Jeez. That is crazy. Okay. Now that it's fully somewhat mixed in, I will place it in the centrifuge. And here we go. Cap on, sulfuric acid away. Now we spin for 5 straight minutes. Nice and easy. Okay. We have spun for 5 minutes. Let's find the... Nope. Do-do-do. Okay. Here it is. Still intact. Oh god. Nothing too dangerous yet. We need to add some hot water just until we're in about 1/4 inch from the bottom of the neck of this bottle. I'm trying to tilt this away from my face. Oh my god, it is burning my hand. It needs to go back. No. And now we spin for an additional 3 minutes. Okay, it's been 3 minutes. Should probably wait for that to stop before I touch. Now, we need to add just a little bit more water, but this time the water is not over 180 degrees Fahrenheit. It is between 135 and 140 Fahrenheit, and that's to ensure that I am not melting the fat in the milk or whatever the solution is now, so we can actually identify it. So all I need to do is fill the water up into this column so that we can read it after what will be another 5-minute spin. Now I will place it back in and we will spin for another 5 minutes. These necks are actually so tiny that nothing comes out when you tip it upside down, or almost nothing. The surface tension alone keeps it sealed. Okay, 5 minutes we go. Okay, let's take this out and have a look. Okay, so here's the final result. Below that black mass is water. Above the black mass is fat. I believe some of the black mass is possibly also fat or proteins. I'm not entirely sure. But the point is, now we must measure this. So to read this, you go with some calipers and you measure from top to bottom of the fat and any other layer. And then you go down to 0 and you read it. So this seems to be 2.4% of fat. This was whole milk at 3.25%. So either they're lying or I didn't do things exactly perfect. I also didn't use distilled water. It helps to use, super clean ingredients in your experiment. Anyways, that's how you would read this. If I put more water and it was up here, you would just set the caliber as so and then reset down to 0. Now they make these all the way up to 8% here, but there are other bottles of similar style for skim milk and for ice cream, which is a much higher milk fat. They even have centrifugal tests for proteins and things like that. All hand crank, all from that exact era. Either way, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one.